What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thought Leader Podcast. This is episode 4, and I am your host, Dylan Barr. And in the Thought Leader Podcast, we interview past and current thought leaders in the space of health, wealth, and relationships in hopes to reaching past, current, and most importantly, aspiring thought leaders. People that have a message, have a mastery in their heads or their hearts, and they're looking to get it out to the world, but might be on that precipice of comfort and uncomfort. So we talk to past and current thought leaders in hopes to understand their story, what they have to teach us, and the uncomfort zone that they went through to get to where they are. Today, we speak about the realm of health, and we will be speaking to Chanita Solrei. A little bit about Chanita. She is a national board certified special educator. We're going to talk about what that means in today's podcast, by nature and by trade. Teaching, speaking, and leading, Chanita serves the spiritual and personal development of youth, young adults, and their families. Chanita equips families with wisdom to access untapped potential and power for building greater personal fulfillment and quality of life. Chanita is an activist for social justice, an agent of social change, and an advocate for a new educational paradigm. She is the founder of Lightbearers Institute, LLC, love that name, director at Horizons for Youth, and author of ABCs for Mental Health, a handbook and how-to, and a shining source of light in the world. That's an incredible introduction. I am so excited to talk to you. Chanita Solrei, welcome to the Thought Leader Podcast.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Hearing all that, it's like, I know it, but it's like, yes, that's me.
I always like to start these podcasts with asking the question, I'm still going to, of what does a thought leader, being a thought leader mean to you? But with you, I really like the fact that you say you're an educator, liberator, and light bearer, and you created an LLC around this. Mm-hmm. So for you, what does being a light bearer mean to you?
For me, being a light bearer is carrying a torch and shedding light. And so for me, that means letting my own inner light shine and seeing that as a catalyst for drawing out the light within others.
Man, I say this often to some of our clients at Thought Leader, right? Especially when they put themselves out there on social media, because we get in our head, we get nervous, uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, your job is not to reach everybody. Your job is to shine your light so bright that it attracts like-minded people. Exactly. I love that for a name.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that, because I think that's one of the thoughts that I help to generate and pass on, is that there is a light inside of you and that it is important to draw that out and to see that as your number one priority and a great value for yourself.
Yeah, and everyone's being so different, I think, is such an important thing to know. I think we live in a society where people want to assimilate themselves sometimes, and instead you're being like, no, shine your damn light.
Period. So, that's what we're here for.
So then it leaning in, and maybe it's similar, maybe there are some differences, but being a thought leader in the space, what would you say being a thought leader means to you?
I would say that to be a thought leader is provoking the thoughts in others, inviting the community to stretch their thinking. It's provoking a reconsideration of ideas, re-examining things that we thought we knew and reimagining something for a greater purpose. I think that it also means doing that yourself continuously so that you can be revising and really expanding thought.
Yeah, it's almost in a sense of like, it's I like when you say stretching, because it's almost like the elasticity of what my mind is used to. Because if we don't stretch it, it can get very rigid, right? So your job is to say, hey, let's massage this. Let's stretch this a bit. Let's think outside a box so we can either expand the box or bring that in it.
Or have a different shape. It doesn't have to be a box. It can be a sphere or something.
A rhombus, trapezoid, diamond. I'll keep going. I was watching your TEDx talk. I loved your TEDx. I've now watched it twice, and I liked it and commented it on it and shared just to help with that algorithm. But
I appreciate you.
Not a problem. We're going to talk about neurodiversity. We're going to talk about how you view, being a special educator rather than special education as we tend to think in our minds. Time to stretch, everybody that's listening. But you said when in the TEDx talk that your journey, I'm a storyteller, so I love talking about where the story began. Your story began with a purple dinosaur that I grew up with as well, called Barney. And there's a song, everyone is special, special, everyone is special in his or her own way. You said that that's kind of the start of the journey for you. So I guess my question was, What do you feel was your specific specialty as a young kid when you watch that and you're like, this is mine?
It was language, I believe. Really, I was at an early age the kid who talked too much,
Hmm.
always had something to say. But I think it was also because I understood a lot. And so I would always get these comments about, being special, like she's so articulate, or wow, how do you know that? And those sorts of things. And it showed up even at school, them wanting to put you in an accelerated class specifically around
Hmm.
the language arts and that sort of thing. So I was a voracious reader. So I would just say language was probably my initial specialty.
That's a really cool specialty. I remember being in a similar class at my elementary school. Do you recall what those favorite books were at a young age for you?
Mm.
Junie B. Jones.
Yeah, I like the diaries. I want to say
Okay.
the diary club, secret diary, something along those
Yeah.
lines. I can't recall the exact
Mhm.
title, but I remember reading a lot of that when I was young.
You also said in your TEDx talk that you were kind of that great student, that prize student. You did really well. So, what was the encouragement for you then to want to go into teaching? Did it start at a young age, or I guess where in your story did that start to elevate itself to the forefront of wanting to be an educator for youth?
Great question. As I like to describe myself and as I understand myself now, teaching was always part of my nature. And because of the structure of schools and the strengths that make you great at school, that's how those two connected. But my entryway into education or being a teacher wasn't so romantic. It really was just a secure way of changing the conditions I was in that were making me uncomfortable, coming from a bit of a disadvantaged background or under resourced community and situation. So that was how I got there. But I stayed because I'm passionate about seeing a more inclusive environment in teaching. And so I just found my niche. And that's how I discovered that teaching was really my nature. But it was just a way out of my current situation, honestly.
I really, to be honest, I'm just saying, hey, this was a way out of what I was currently doing. But then you also talk about, I'm curious if there was a moment in the timeline of Chanita Solrei where you shifted your focus to really want to help. You say in your TEDx talk, the rebels and the rock stars, not just, the kids that I wrote it down, the kids that kind of are really good at excelling at the robot techniques that
Mhm.
sometimes our schools can or have to teach. What was the moment where you shifted and said, "Hey, I really want to make sure I'm helping this underappreciated or underviewed segment of students?"
It was when I learned about special education and what it meant. And so it became my way out because special education is a shortage area. And so there was all of these resources, specifically nationwide, there are these resources for people to become special educators. And so that was my exit point. But when I got in and I learned what special education was, I felt like it was something that could have supported my brother or other people in my community, or even have made me a better version of myself if it existed. So I think it was just my first year in college, learning what it actually meant to do special education, learning about the individualized nature of it.
Yeah, so stepping into it for you is like, "Whoa, these are actually really good practices for all
Yes.
kids."
Yes.
And can you describe to those that are watching this the biggest misconception people have with neurodivergent kids? And if you don't mind, potentially some people watching this, if they don't know what neurodivergence is, would you mind kind of explaining what that is? And then what tends to be the biggest misconception we as a society have on it?
Sure. Yeah, neurodivergence is a word that captures the concept that each mind is wired differently or uniquely. It has different natural capacities, that there's no single way that the brain operates, which we understand conceptually. And so neurodivergence is a great way of describing that. And I think along those lines, the biggest misconception is that there should be, that there is this one way and anything else, and that means less than, right? We
Mm,
tend to associate special education with a disability instead of a different ability or a different strength or a different means of doing things.
mm. Yeah, because When you say neurodivergence in that way, it's like me growing up knowing that there was classes and then there was some advanced classes and then there were special education classes. It almost is easy for then that concept to be there's a way of teaching the typical classes, the advanced classes, and the special education classes. But what you're saying is broadening this to a place of neurodivergence. It's really just saying every kid is wired their own way. And we need to kind of make sure we're helping foster their education in the way that their brain is wired. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, because I would even say, Dylan, even in your description there, that brought me to another misconception that special education is just for students who maybe need remediation, when in fact, gifted education is also special education. Students who are gifted also have IEPs or those individualized education programs. So yes, it's about customizing education for children based on where they are in their personal skill set mindset.
And you talk about wanting to make a full transformation to the
Mhm.
education system,
Yes.
right? What is that to you? Because the education system is big, and that's a bold statement to be like, I want to transform how this is operated. What is the transformation you aim to make, or you aim to at least get closer to with the
I always start with the purpose of it, which is to make it more inclusive. And I think a means of making education, making our system more inclusive, is to ensure that there's a greater return on the investment for students by doing two things. One, personalizing the learning for students. And there are methods in special education. There's a blueprint already for it. And so that's one thing, to make special education, those practices, more universal. And the second component is integrating more self-study opportunities for youth so that they're not just learning to master concepts associated with math, science, history, reading, but so that they learn to become masters of themselves. That's crucial for our survival beyond the school setting.
Give them more time for themselves and really understand where they're at. Because what you're saying is it almost sounds like the IEP system can be scalable to any type of kid, not just what society would say as special education.
Yes, examining strengths, areas for improvement, your goals, and helping you to create plans around getting there. I mean, it's pretty basic.
Yeah. Well, and I love when you say basic, because that was my next question with this is when I say it, when I hear a transformation of the education system, I'm like, dang, that's a tall glass of like a tall order, right? What do you feel like someone that is a teacher that could be listening to this, or someone that is an administrator that could be listening to this? What do you feel are some of the first steps we could take, right? It's that quote that says the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What do you feel is the first like simple steps we can start to teach and ingrain into the school systems to get closer to that transformation?
Dylan, everything is birthed from the mind first. So thought first, it starts as an idea. So the first step is to change the mindset. And so I think that the first mindset shift is the one from being a teacher of content or a grade level to being a teacher of person. So those boxes about this is my grade level, I teach second grade or I teach math, means it's all about that. But when you change and it's limiting of the perception, but if you change to thinking who we teach instead of what we teach, that's going to help to be more inclusive, because now you're examining your students and trying to help them attain a math skill or to advance themselves instead of just being so focused on the content.
Dang, I like the concept of, because I think it's easy for people to get into this like obligation of their job. Like, I go to work and this is what I do. This is what I teach. So you're even saying the simple mindset shift of this is who I teach.
Yes.
Not this is what I teach.
Yes.
Kind of going a little bit of a tangent here, if you don't mind. I know that your specialty, and we're going to talk about how you really working with educators that are looking to get more support and say, how can I do this? But at a home level, right? People that are listening to this are also moms, dads, right? What are things that we can start to do at home to really help our kids learn in their own way?
Yeah, it's starting to pay attention to who your children are uniquely. And I think that one of the first things you have to do is stop the comparison. I think this especially happens in households where there are multiple children. And it's like, you should be like, and get rid of the you should be's into this is who you are, and really celebrating those things and using that celebratory language. So like I'm saying, instead of, if it was me, right, not you talk too much, it's you're talkative or you're really expressive and really highlighting those strengths and inviting them to stretch and grow in whatever their skill set, their unique gifts, and really emphasizing those for children. That's our job as adults, right? Is to see them and to help them start to get the language of being able to describe themselves and really honor and value that in them.
Yeah, so it's almost like rather than the comparison of you're not doing this is what you don't have. It's kind of that the whole concept of strength finders. Anyone that hear that reads and goes into strength
Yes,
finders, it's
exactly.
let's double down and lean into the strengths that you have as a child.
Yes, the different intelligence that they have. You're musical, you are kinesthetic, you use your body well, those sorts
Hmm.
of things.
Why do you feel that something like this, teaching kids their own way, allow like understanding that this is about the child, not what they need to learn, but it's who they are. Why is that message so valuable for parents and most importantly, educators?
It's most valuable because it creates a culture. I think that this is a societal shift because there's so much comparison at an early age. We start to foster this competitive spirit, and that creates so much anxiety in our society. And that's creating so much of the mental health challenges that we see. And so to really start to teach inclusivity and to celebrate diversity is going to be in greater service of us all overall because we're all interconnected.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like when I think when we're able to lean more into here's my strength, then we can seek out those that are good at maybe our blind spots or things that don't come as natural to us, things that we don't want to be doing as much, right? It's then
Mhm.
you're really fostering the a collaboration for
Yes,
young kids.
exactly. Holding space for all of us and our unique natural gifts.
Yeah, rather than having someone say, "I'll do all of it because I guess I can be good at all of it," or "You're not good here," and it's like, man, you're stretching that kid, and even that. I mean, I know adults that try to stretch themselves too thin with things like this.
Mhm.
So, I guess with your work now, because we've talked, I believe your expertise. I mean, you're a speaker here, you're an educator yourself. Who is it that you really aim to help in your practice? Could you tell us a little bit more about your practice and who is it that you aim to serve first with
My
your message?
Yeah, mostly the youth and young people,
Yeah.
right? My message is to improve the conditions for our young people so that they're able to thrive in adulthood. And I help them grow in their self awareness, their self determination, their self expression, self confidence. I can go on, right? That self
Hmm.
mastery that I mentioned. So to support them, I work with them directly, but I also have to work with their parents. Everything starts at home. So supporting them and helping to understand and meet the unique needs of their children. And the same thing for educators. How can I equip them with tools to facilitate self-study for the young people that they work with to incorporate those personalized learning practices?
And how do you go about doing this, right? Do you work at a one-on-one level? Do you work at a group level with some of these teachers that would come to you? Obviously, it's not like you're saying, "Hey, kids, look what I can help you with." You're facilitating through an educator or a parent for that child or those children. Is it at a one-on-one level? Do you feel it's best in groups? Like,
So I do host workshops because there are some general practices that you can utilize. But then, of course, everybody has unique situations. And so I do offer one-on-one consultation and coaching as well. But primarily, there's always going to be some universal concepts or principles, I would say, that one can take and apply to the unique situations that they have. So certainly those workshops and then also the one-on-ones.
and where can people learn more about the workshops? Because I feel like that'd probably be more of the first foot in the door for someone learning more about, like, where do they learn about your workshops and what you do?
Exactly. So I talk about or you can find all of the practices and the resources that I have on teachershanita.com. That's where I'm at spreading my message. That's also where you can sign up and get involved with some of the things that I'm doing around this work.
Got it. Teachershanita.com. And for anyone listening, we'll put the links in the description so they can go ahead and learn more. Uh, with it too, I love what you stand for. I love the whole special educator rather than special education, right? I feel like just that word alone is a thought shift for me as I say it out
Mhm.
loud. I had to say it a couple of times before you came on. This is a mastery and a message that does go against the grain, right? Like most people are like, we go to school and school is this. And for some reason, it has not evolved in a long time. So you're someone that's like, you're swimming against the current with this. You are very passionate about this message. And you've got to have some uncomfortable conversations. Like you've got to be able to say this to some people and they kind of give you that side eye, like, you mean what?
Always.
So, and I think it's important for someone that's an aspiring thought leader to know this, because we see someone like Chanita Solrei and we're like, oh, well, she's got it and I don't. It'd be too hard for me. We don't hear the story of all the uncomfortable situations you put yourself in because this message is so important to you. So I guess
Mhm.
for you specifically, if we can kind of shift into like the tail end of this interview, it's all about uncomfortability.
Mhm.
Why was it so important for you to choose to get uncomfortable and lean into this message?
Because I'm looking for change, and change doesn't occur in a comfort zone. There's a burning in my belly to see a difference and to make a difference and to change the system. And I can't do that by staying in my comfort zone. And more so, I found that either way, I'm uncomfortable. So I can stay in this zone of everything is the same status quo, but then I'm compromising myself and that makes me uncomfortable, or I'm complying and that makes me uncomfortable. So I had to really choose which discomfort zone I would enter.
I just gotta, when you get those moments and it goes through the whole body, some people just say chills, but it's like, man, it's like an energy pulse of you're uncomfortable regardless.
Yeah.
Compliance is uncomfortable for you. You're like, no, if I want to make change, I choose that uncomfort over the uncomfort of compliance. Here's another question,
Mhm.
and egos aside when I always ask this, but it's you're out there, you're on the battlefield, you're doing this, right? It's like I really hope people can hear this and aspire to do what you're doing in their own mastery and message. But why do you feel some people don't get outside their comfort zone? I think there's a lot of people that have that message, have that mastery, and it's like they're close, but they choose comfort. What do you think causes it? As it from an educator perspective, maybe.
Yeah, there's a sense of insecurity.
Mm.
Again, it's that conditioning that we have to have it figured out, or it has to look a certain way. We're afraid to take a risk to be different or to honor our unique voice, message, what have you. So that's going to be limited. And essentially, those are all connected to fear, right? So
Hmm.
it's natural, and fear is natural, but it's again a choice. Which one are you most afraid of? Losing yourself or being seen as different from someone else?
Damn, I love the logical way you can just ask that question. It's like, hey, everyone's gonna have fear. Which, by the way, next episode we talked to John Mylan on fear and how he tackles it. So, but for you, it's are you gonna choose fear? Are you gonna choose,
Love.
or you're
Those are
gonna
the
choose
two.
love? Yeah, it's like
Mhm,
which one? So that could be the answer to my final question. There are gonna be people that are listening to these podcasts, and
mhm,
they're slowly gaining knowledge. It's fun to take in knowledge. It's fun to sometimes tune out and just listen to two people talking about a cool concept like
mhm.
neurodiversity. But there's going to be some people listening to this, and every time another episode comes out, they're like, "Man, I want to work on my art, or I really want to work on, this specific skill." What would you say to that person who is right on the precipice of comfort and uncomfort? They've been looking to get outside their comfort zone and really get started. What would you say to them to encourage them to get uncomfortable?
Instead of considering what you have to lose, hold your attention on what you have to gain, how you can grow, what you'll learn. Love to learn the adventure of the unfolding. That's what
Oh,
I tell myself.
how often do you tell yourself this? Like, how often do you keep this in the forefront of your mind, saying it out
Every
loud?
day, Dylan.
Yeah.
Every day you have to, at least on a weekly basis, but frequently I tell myself some version of that every day.
It's crazy that a lot of people are like oh, you're there, and they don't realize that this is day in and day out building those habits, right? And
Mhm.
I always tell it's boring sometimes in the beginning, right? It's frustrating sometimes in the beginning, but coming back to what you said, it's more of it's gonna be you're gonna be uncomfortable either way. Choose that battle. This was a really fun conversation,
It
Chanita
will.
Solrei. I love what you're doing. I love how you view this. I know people can find you at teachershanita.com. You do
Mhm.
workshops. You do one-on-one consulting for both parents and teachers alike. So any educator out there is like, man, how can I start to weave this in? It sounds like they can get a bunch of information at your website, and that's the best way to contact with you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Is there any parting words that you have before I give my parting words?
Yeah, my parting word is you can't be you the wrong way. So just keep on being yourself.
Mm, I had so much fun. talking about this. We want to keep them short. We want to keep them punchy so people can really take this and run with it. So if you're listening to our podcast today from Chanita Solrei, the biggest takeaways that I had is change doesn't occur in the comfort zone. First and foremost, if you really wake up and look to make change in a specific area of your life, health, wealth, or relationships, change comes in uncomfort. And another way of looking at uncomfort is there's uncomfort in both the uncomfort zone and the comfort zone, because we can be uncomfortable with, what did you say?
Compromise.
You can be uncomfortable with compromise, uncomfortable with like giving into the system. That's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Choose your uncomfort. Push out into the uncomfort zone. Thank you so much for what you do, Chanita. I appreciate it. And anybody that's watching, venture into the uncomfort zone, and we will see you in the next episode of the Thought Leader Podcast. Thank you so much, Chanita.
Peace.